Very mysterious news from Yellowstone. Do we need to worry about the Yellowstone Super Volcano? So, really imagine there is a ground at the Yellowstone area, and scientists just walked on that ground, on this same ground that has now changed completely into something very, very dangerous. And had that happened while they were walking that ground, over and out. Only days later, after they walked that ground collapsed into a boiling new pool. What exactly happened? This is not a normal geyser eruption. This happened at the Biscuit Basin. We've heard about the Biscuit Basin quite a bit in the last 1.5, 2 years with these explosions and stuff. Only about 2 miles, like 3 kilometers from Old Faithful, in the same area where the Black Diamond Pool exploded in 2024 and threw water, mud, and rocks hundreds of feet into the air. You've seen the videos. Now the USGS confirms that the ground has changed again in a very interesting, well, let's say unusual way. So what happened? Now the USGS has released the data. It happened on June 13th, just after 5:09 in the morning, thankfully in the morning, so nobody could walk around in this area. Monitoring equipment that they of course have there inside the Biscuit Basin detected something abnormal. It was not just heat, which is happening there in this area. It was not just steam. The instruments picked up seismic energy and infrasound. That's basically a low frequency pressure signal. Pressure, not good with a volcano, right? Where was that signal coming from? It was coming from the direction of the Black Diamond Pool. So at first, the scientists thought, okay, maybe the Black Diamond Pool itself has erupted again. But the data, they looked at the data and then it just didn't fit. The temperature sensor at the Black Diamond Pool showed only like a tiny heat change, like not the kind of sharp signal that you would expect if the pool had blasted open again. So scientists checked the camera, and the camera had caught it. At 5:09 and 50 seconds in the morning, a dark steam plume suddenly jetted out of the ground north of the Black Diamond Pool, like not from the pool itself, from barren ground nearby. And that is really, really important. That really matters because this was a new hydrothermal explosion from the ground beside the known pool. That's why I always say these walkways around the geysers and the pools. Guys, I enjoy that from aerial views and from videos. I would not walk there. We've seen it in 2024 with that sudden explosion that destroyed these wooden walkways and people were running for their lives. This is unpredictable, really. So besides the known pool, interesting location, when the sun came up and they were actually able to look, the first visible clue was not at the pool. It was in the river. In the river. And the river has an interesting name that kind of matches. The Firehole River. That is downstream from Biscuit Basin. And the river had turned the color into a strange light gray milky color. So that is sediment-rich water that had been flushed into the river and carried downstream quite far for about 6 kilometers, 3.7 miles towards the Midway Geyser Basin. So that means what was happening was not just only steam, what they saw on the camera. It was not just only steam rising from a hot spring or something like this. Evidence, water, mud, sediment, and broken ground had been forced out of the shallow hydrothermal system of Yellowstone and had been pushed towards the river. So when Yellowstone geologists reached the scene the next day, they found basically 3 groups of new vents north of the Black Diamond Pool. New, like 3 new openings to describe what I mean with vent. So 3 new weak spots. These are weak spots where near boiling water had suddenly found a path to the surface. Poof! Think about Campi Flegrei, where we say it's unpredictable, right? What I tell you about the hydrothermal system, the earthquakes, the land rise. Watch my Campi Flegrei video. The latest news is not good at all. I'll put it in the end screen. So here, let's try to dissect that mystery. 3 new vents. The northern vent group was the most dramatic because a crack had opened in the ground, quite long, 18.5 meters, that's 61 feet. Imagine you walk there when that happens. And quite wide, in places up to 1.5 meters wide, that's 5 feet. That thing swallows you. So it was filled with water around 90 degrees Celsius. So it not only swallows you, it also cooks you, ready to eat right away, so to speak. 194 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is almost boiling at Yellowstone's elevation. And around it, what happened? What did they see? Around these cracks and vents, rocks had been thrown out by the explosion, not super far, only a few meters, a few feet. But this tells scientists that this blast was indeed smaller than the 2024 explosion, which was really massive. But smaller, guys, does not mean safe, because this event did something more disturbing than the 2024 event. It kept changing after the explosion. So near the middle vent group, the geologists later found something. They found a new boiling pool. It was not there before. It just was new. It formed basically after the initial event in the following days. So it formed sometime between the afternoon of June 14th and the morning of June 16th. And it did not form because there was material blasted outwards. And here is the crucial part. USGS said it was formed by collapse. And that's the scary part. That means the ground gave way. And that's why I said, imagine walking there. So the new pool, it's about 6.5 meters by 5.3 meters. That is roughly 21 by 17 feet. And it is filled with boiling water. So the danger was not only the explosion on June 13th. The danger was the ground itself that kept failing, collapsing in the days after. And by June 18th, the new pool was already spouting. So USGS camera recorded episodes where boiling water was shot like 6 to 9 meters high. That's 20 to 30 feet up into the air. And that is basically the storyline of that event. First, a hidden pressure event under the ground, then the new vents, then a cracked boiling fissure, quite long and wide, then a collapse of the ground and a new pool is formed, and then geyser-like spouting that had not existed days earlier. And this is happening in the same basin where the Black Diamond Pool produced one of the most dramatic hydrothermal explosions ever recorded in Yellowstone. And now we have this activity, this heightened activity. So on July 23rd, let's just step back. In 2024, that explosion sent a dark plume of water, steam, mud, and rock about 120 to 180 meters high, guys. That's 400 to 600 feet into the air. Visitors ran from the boardwalk. The boardwalk was heavily damaged. Imagine you stand there. Rocks were thrown across the area. And the scary part is the USGS tells us no clear warning signal was detected before that explosion. And this is why that 2026 event is concerning with tourist season right now, people running around everywhere. This is, of course, not proof that Yellowstone is about to erupt volcanically or super eruption that will end everything. No, but, and the USGS tells us, Yellowstone's volcano alert level remains normal. Aviation color code remains green. Earthquakes are in the background levels. There were only 45 located earthquakes in May, largest magnitude 2.0, and there were no earthquake swarms. Ground deformation also does not show a major volcanic signal. So no Yellowstone's Magma system, it seems, that is not currently showing evidence of a volcanic eruption ramp up, but definitely there is activity, right? This specific hydrothermal area is active, it's unstable, and it's changing. And if you're there when that happens, it's very life-threatening. And right now, this is the real Yellowstone hazard that exists right now, right? And most people really do underestimate that. Not lava is the problem, and not like the end of days Hollywood movie super volcano scenario. It's boiling water that is trapped beneath sealed ground. And as you can see, no warning signs. They had no clue that this would happen. So how? Why? In Yellowstone, hot water circulates through shallow underground cracks and conduits. We know that. Over time, silica can seal those pathways. And then when water becomes trapped and the pressure builds, it's like a pressure cooker, right? The system can fail suddenly, and then water flashes to steam. Steam expands violently, and then the ground can explode. And that's what we call a hydrothermal explosion, right? And unlike many volcanic eruptions, these events can be small, sudden, and extremely local, but still very deadly if someone is standing on the wrong piece of ground. So the June 13th explosion may become one of the most important monitoring events that Yellowstone scientists have ever captured, because it happened only about 100 meters, 328 feet from a monitoring station that they had installed in 2025. So that means the instruments may have recorded the best close-range data ever collected from a Yellowstone hydrothermal explosion. So now they're looking through seismic, infrasound, temperature, and camera data to see if there were warning signs before the ground opened. And that answer really, really matters. Warning signs, right? If they were signals, Yellowstone may have a better chance, or the Yellowstone scientists may have a better chance of recognizing future explosions, right? If there were no useful warning signs, then this confirms, unfortunately, the worst part of the hazard there. The ground can look quiet and then suddenly fail. And there's no guarantee that it couldn't fail underneath one of these walkways, in my opinion. Don't want to scare you away from Yellowstone. I'm just saying, be careful. Is it really worth it, right? And that's why this new pool is so important, because it's not just a new hot spring, right? It's fresh evidence that the shallow hydrothermal plumbing system underneath the Biscuit Basin is still reorganizing after the 2024 explosion. And the Black Diamond Pool has erupted numerous times since 2024. We had in May 2026 new eruptions from the pool. Then in June, ground north of it exploded. Days later, the ground collapsed now, right? Then new pool has formed. So how unstable is the ground around the Black Diamond Pool right now? This is the major question that I'm asking. We do know the volcano is not quiet, and we also know the hydrothermal system is not, right? I hope they find an answer to that, because I think it is unstable. So walking around there, let me know. Would you do it? If I gave you a ticket to Yellowstone, would you walk around there? Let me know. And check out the video in the end screen, guys. So much was happening, and there is a big piece of rock not coming from below, coming from above. Crazy, crazy. This could be larger than Bluton, and it's throning over a Swiss village. Very threatening. You have to see this. Stuff already came down from other areas towards that village. So a village in fear of total devastation. Check it out. I see you there. Bye-bye.